Okay. So for those of you watching the recording, welcome to this GCSE exam workshop in which we will be focusing on the role of Lady Macbeth. So you can share your ideas during the session in the chat box. You can just record them on your piece of paper, do brainstorms, anything you like. I'm also happy for you to take photographs of the screen as well. But of course, you will get a copy of the recording whether you're live or not. So you can come back and revisit any part of the workshop if you'd like to. Breakout rooms will happen at a few stages throughout the workshop. They are optional, but they really are a great opportunity for you to go in and share your ideas and just listen to other people's ideas as well. One of the really great things about these workshops is that there are learners in year 9, 10 and 11 from all across the country, and actually some in other countries as well. And you've all learned about Macbeth in different ways, from different teachers. So you're all going to bring completely different ideas to the table. So breakout rooms are really interesting and useful in this context. And be involved and engage your brain. The more you put in and the more you focus and the more you engage, the more you are going to get out of these workshops. Now, when you go into the breakout rooms, we've all been in an awkward one before where it's very quiet. My top tips are to introduce yourself, ask everyone if they know what we're supposed to be doing. And once you've done that, sorry, there's people still arriving, so I'm trying to let everybody in. Once you've all done that, then you can start to share your ideas and make a note of each other's ideas as well. So you probably have noticed there's quite a lot of people live this evening. I think there's about 50 or so of you. There's not usually that many people in my workshops. So if you're asking questions tonight and I miss it, that's because there's so many of you here. But usually in my workshops, when there are fewer people, I am able to respond to everybody's questions. Oh, and before we start, I should say also, my dog, who always joins me, keeps me company when I'm teaching. He sometimes snores, so if you hear a little bit of that in the background, I apologise in advance. That's Bertie. So by the end of this workshop this evening, you will have reflected on the exam's assessment objectives. You might be familiar with those already, particularly if you're in year 11, but if you're in year 10 or year 9, or even if you're in year 11 and you're not, that's absolutely fine. We are going to explore how Lady Macbeth is presented in the play, and you'll have an opportunity to practice writing about Macbeth as a play and about Lady Macbeth in a developed and detailed way. So part one, we're just going to have a quick look at the assessment objectives. Now, these are focused around the AQA exam, but actually they apply across all exam boards. So if you're not doing the AQA literature exam, don't worry, this is still entirely useful for you. So we've got 4 assessment objectives. You're probably already familiar with these, AO1 through to AO4. And what I've done here is I've just highlighted the key vocabulary for each assessment objective and picked it out for you there. So AO1 is your personal response to the play. So how much you understand of what's going on in the story and your opinions on those things. And of course, textual references as well, which are quotes, but it's also being able to reference different things that happen. AO2 is how well you can analyze language, so and use subject terminology, so picking out metaphors or talking about the use of an ellipsis and things like that. And AO3 is context, so that's talking about the social, cultural and historical context of the time the play was written, and also how a modern audience might interpret it. And AO4 is your vocabulary that you use and your technical accuracy. And really what AO4 is how well you can write an essay. So that's what the examiner is looking for there. And there's fewer marks for AO4. The body of the marks comes from AO1, AO2 and AO3, certainly for AQA and for most other exams as well. Now, you've got a copy of this on the resource that came with the workshop. It's on the pre-workshop task sheet. And I just think it's really, really useful. And I'm just going to summarise very quickly why. So the wording for each assessment objective there, that is outlining to you what the examiner is hoping you can do. So the examiner is really trying to find evidence of that in your work. So when you know what the examiner is looking for, then you know what to include in your written work. And over on this side is some prompt questions to ask yourself to make sure that you're doing what the examiner is looking for. Now, I always suggest reading through these prompt questions before you write an essay answer for your literature exams, particularly for Macbeth here. It'll get you thinking in the right sort of way. So we're going to move on to the pre-workshop task. This was sent out when the resources were originally sent out on Saturday, but if you've only just had a chance to have a look at it today, or even if you haven't had a chance at all, please don't worry, you can still join in. Sending it out in advance was just to give everybody the opportunity to spend some time preparing for the workshop if they felt they wanted to. So the pre-workshop task was looking at a student's answer and thinking about how it could be improved. So a student was asked how Lady Macbeth's ambition was presented in the play, and this here is part of their answer. They said, Lady Macbeth is even more ambitious than her husband. As soon as an opportunity to gain power presents itself, she has a plan in mind and uses her influence to persuade Macbeth too. She says, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it, which shows how ruthless her ambition is. Now, when the examiner looked at this, the examiner said that there was a basic interpretation of what that quote suggests, and deeper analysis is required. So what I'd like you to do in the chat box, if you're able to, is think about how you might improve what the student has written using the examiner's comments of deeper analysis required. So what part would you develop? Would you add anything? Would you develop any particular idea in that? If you'd like to have a go at putting some thoughts into the chat box, and it would be nice to see. Hopefully some of you have got some ideas and have completed the pre-workshop task. Excellent. So Dougie says develop the ending as it's a very short analysis. And Luke says connotations of words in the quote. Lara says expanding on the quote. EG looks like they've had a lot of practice on this. They look like they have a method. So lots of you have given suggestions of ways that you could improve this, or the parts of it that you would improve. But what would you actually write? So what I'm going to ask you to do now in the next 5 minutes is adapt, improve, or rewrite any part of this paragraph showing depth of analysis and a good understanding of the play and the characters. So you'd be focusing on the skills for AO1 and AO2. So that's your personal response and your language analysis. So we all know that that quote there needs to be explained a bit more. Maybe you could explore the connotations of words within that quote. Have a go, see what you can come up with. You're free to write your ideas down on paper or put them in the chat box. But remember, if you put them in the chat box, you're actually helping everybody else as well. Henry and Janet have just asked a really good question in the chat box. They've said, can we use a different quote? And the answer, of course, is yes. You can do any changes or adapting of what's already there to improve their answer. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left. So what I'd like to do in the last couple of minutes is open up the breakout rooms. Like I said, they are optional. So you've got the choice of spending 2 minutes working independently on your answer or going into the breakout rooms to share your piece or listen to other people's ideas too. And there are already some really fantastic answers in the chat box. So if you're struggling a little bit, have a look at what other people have written. And I have just noted the typo on the screen. So it says, how is Lady Macbeth's ambition was presented in the play? So obviously the word was should not be in that question. Once we come back from the breakout rooms, I will show you a more developed answer to have a little look at before we move on. And when you go into the breakout rooms, if you haven't used them before, an invitation will pop up on the screen. You just tap on it and you go into a room with fewer people. You'll be able to talk to each other, see each other. And I will close the breakout rooms after 1 minute, and that will give you one further minute until you automatically return to the main room. So breakout rooms are now open. We're just going to wait another 20 seconds for everybody to come back from the breakout rooms, and then we'll move on. And whilst you're waiting, you might like to have a look at the really good answers in the chat box. Somebody's just said that all the answers have gone in the chat box, which is a shame because I can still see them. So I'm not sure why you can't, because there are some fabulous ones there. Maybe if you try scrolling up, you might be able to find them. It might depend on the device you're on, I'm not sure. Right. So welcome back from the breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are a little bit tricky to coordinate when there are so many people in a workshop. And like I said at the very start, I know some of you weren't here at the very, very start, but usually my workshops have between sort of 12 and 20 people, which is a lot more manageable. And I can make sure there are enough people in each breakout room to have those conversations, and not too many so that people don't get to share their answers. So just bear with me today. It's a very large group, which is a great thing. Okay, so here we go. Here is a suggestion of how you might develop this particular answer. So I've put a little extra bit on the beginning just to structure the idea in the right direction, to make sure it's actually responding to the question. And I've added onto the end the idea of ambition leading to evil and lack of morality is further suggested through the metaphor of an illness being needed to attend it. The metaphor illness connotes unwellness, pain, and abnormality, suggesting the traits needed to achieve ambitious desires are unnatural and wicked. So you can see what I've done there is closely analyze the language in that quote, but also I've connected it to the idea at the start of the paragraph as well. So it really clearly shows that I am answering the question and creating a coherent, sort of ordered response to it. As I said at the beginning as well, I'm very happy for you to take photographs of the screen if there's anything that you would find interesting or useful at a later date. And of course, everybody will get the recording. So we're going to move on to looking at the sample essay now. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read it, but don't worry too much. If you haven't, hopefully you've got it on a screen nearby or a printout. So the question for the sample, the model essay, is explore how far Shakespeare presents Lady Macbeth as a loyal and supportive partner to Macbeth. That's the question. And the question then goes on to say that your answer should focus on Act 3, Scene 4, and then the play as the whole. I think everybody has a copy of that extract as well. So some questions for you. What should this essay include? How long should you spend on it? How should you start? And how should you finish if you were presented with this question in the exam? So maybe share what you already know in the chat box. This might vary slightly between you all depending on what exam board you are on. Right, okay, I'm going to give you some answers to these questions. Oh, look, thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte says maybe start with when it was written. You don't have to start your literature essays with that contextual information. Marwan says a brief summary. Matthew's thinking strategically here. 5 to 10 minutes planning and then around 40 to 45 minutes writing and 5 minutes to read over it. That's really good exam technique, Matthew. Well done. Amelie says start with an introduction. Yeah. Okay. So Luke has got some structured paragraphs already sort of mapped out for the exam. So some of you will already be thinking in an exam frame of mind, and it's really good to see that you've got some structure there for how you would start off these essays. Yep, a thesis statement at the beginning. Yep. It's terrifically reassuring to see how many of you have already got some good ideas of how you would approach this. Amelie, that's a good way of planning out the paragraphs. So what you would put in within each paragraph. So here are some suggestions for you. So an introduction, at least one paragraph on the extract, at least 2 paragraphs on other points in the play or other ideas, followed by a conclusion. Around 50 to 55 minutes, which actually matches what lots of you were saying, around 5 to 10 minutes planning time, then 40 to 45 minutes of writing and 5 minutes or so to read over your work. So that fits with where lots of you are already working. A short introduction that explains where in the text the extract happens is what is recommended for the AQA exam. If you're not on the AQA board, then you may just have a standard introduction or a standard thesis type statement that you use. And finish with a short conclusion that summarises what you have discussed in your essay, but also a final thought that answers the question. So it's really important at the end of the essay to make sure you come back to making it absolutely clear that everything that you've said answers the question. So the essay is about whether Lady Macbeth is a loyal and supportive partner. So I'm going to again give you 2 options. You can either go into the breakout rooms to share the sorts of things that should go into an essay about whether Lady Macbeth is or is not a loyal and supportive partner, or you can bullet point some ideas in the main room instead if you prefer. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. You'll have 2 minutes whether you stay in or pop out. Up to you. Rooms are now open. Okay, I think that's everybody back from the breakout rooms. It's crazy to try and organise the breakout rooms because one breakout room had 8 people in and others had 2 people in. So I hope that if you did go into a breakout room and wanted to discuss some ideas, that you all found that opportunity. So some of the things you might have mentioned are on the screen. I'm sure you came up with lots of other ideas as well. So the first bullet point talks about traditionally at the time the play was written, wives had to be supportive of their husbands' careers and aspirations, and Lady Macbeth would be fulfilling her role as a devoted, helpful wife and therefore being loyal and supportive. So that would not only show, if you said something along those lines, AO1, but also AO3, so that wider context, the social, cultural and historical context of the play. The second bullet point is talking about the beginning of the play and how their relationship changes a little bit, or how it moves through the play, and that would be AO1. And the last bullet point is, I suppose, more about Lady Macbeth's perception of being loyal and supportive towards her husband. And again, that would be AO1. So you've all got a copy of the sample essay, I hope. If you haven't got it printed, but you've got it on a phone or a tablet or somewhere else nearby, that's also fine. What I would like you to do, hopefully you've had a read through already, but even if you skim read through it now, see if you can find evidence of each of those assessment objectives within the essay. So where can you see that the student has hit AO1? So where have they shown that they've got a good understanding of what happens in the play and have used really good quotes to support that? Where have they done some really good language analysis and used subject terminology to show that they understand how it's been put together and what it means? And AO3, so the wider context, is that referenced anywhere in the essay? And finally, if there's something that you think is really well written, then that would be AO4. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to have a skim read through that, and then we'll discuss what we think is what are the particular strengths of this essay. So let's give it 5 minutes, because hopefully you've already had a read through. What you might like to do to help you keep a track of your findings, as you skim read over the model essay, you might just write AO1 where you see evidence of AO1, and you might write AO3 where you see the student writing about the wider context. I'm going to give you another minute or so before we move on to talk about the strengths of this essay. Okay, Moyen has just asked a really good question in the chat. So do we need to memorize quotes for our essay, or will they give us an extract in the exam? So you will be given an extract for AQA and I believe for Edexcel. I don't know for the other literature exam boards specifically, although they are usually all very, very similar. So I would expect so. However, you can write your answer based just on the extract, using the extract's quotes, but you do need to show that you understand the whole play. So I think it is certainly worthwhile to memorize some really key quotes from throughout the play. Now, the best options are the ones that you can link to a range of different things. So some of Lady Macbeth's quotes, they might tie in with ambition, they might tie in with fate, they might be really good for discussing the wider context. So if you can find quotes that really cover lots of ground, then those are the best ones to go for to memorize. Okay. You're very welcome. Okay, we're not going to head into the breakout rooms to discuss these, simply because I don't want us to run out of time this evening. And like I said, the workshops are usually 1 hour, but this one today is 45 minutes. So we're sort of squeezing quite a lot into a short time. So what assessment objective do you think is this essay's strength and why? So you can share your thoughts in the chat box. If you think it's got really good language analysis and that's where the strength of this essay lies, then you can say that, or whatever your thoughts might be. Yes, CVJAC says strong in AO2 and AO4. Yep. Amy says, I think the best part is the context paragraph. There's lots of really great links to the wider context in this essay. Yeah, I agree, Moyen. Yeah, you're all right, really, because it's just a really great essay. So it does have strengths across all of the assessment objectives. But maybe when you're looking at your own essays, or maybe if you're doing any peer assessment or reading over your friends' essays at school, you might be able to start picking out where their assessment objective strengths are. And once you know where the strengths are, then it's a lot easier to go, okay, well, I'm not doing enough of the AO2, or I'm not doing enough of the AO3, or my AO4 is quite poor. I need to look at my essay structuring skills and make time to proofread my work. What's stopping it from being grade 9? I'm going to give you the examiner's feedback in just a moment. But that's a really good question, Dougie. And I just want to whiz back very quickly. Henry and Janet say, what are the best revision resources to use to get the best quotes? That's a how long is a piece of string question. I think the York Notes revision guides and flashcards and so on are the best ones, personally. But there are lots of great ones out there. So the examiner says this is a thoughtful response that develops a relevant and systematic answer to the question. Some perceptive and revealing links are made between the play and the relevant contexts, with exploration of the reactions of a modern and contemporary audience to Lady Macbeth's language. So whilst that does sound a bit wordy, what the examiner is saying there is that there have been some links explored for AO3, which is strong, but it says some. So maybe more thorough or detailed links to AO3 would be what this essay needs to boost it up to a grade 9. I also think a little bit of more flair might take it to a grade 9. And flair is a difficult thing to describe, isn't it? It's just when an essay just sounds great, it's written really fluently, with style and panache, and we do look for that sort of thing with a grade 9 essay. Amelie says, what grade was this essay? It's a grade 7 to 8. It's hard to give a specific grade because the grade boundaries change every year, but it's a very high level. I'd say probably around an 8. So if anyone is interested in improving their understanding of the wider context of this play, I am doing a workshop specifically on the wider context of Macbeth in, I think it's end of February. But I've got a whole list of different dates for all different texts and different workshops. So there may be something that helps you. I'll pop it into an email to everybody's adult or whoever booked for them after the workshop. Okay, so we're going to move on to some deeper analysis. We're going to run over briefly. So a student was asked how Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's relationship is presented at the end of the play. So for that question, you're going to need to know what happens at the end of the play. And this is their answer. Lady Macbeth's guilt and torment presented through her infected mind show the depth of the decline of their marriage at the end of the play. Then Macbeth asked the doctor to cure her diseased mind. So the examiner's notes on this answer say, could expand on this idea. How could they expand on this idea? So I'm going to ask you to just very briefly see what you would add on to the end of that to really explore what that means. Amelie's just asked what the wider context workshop would cover. It covers how to write about the wider context in terms of the other things that you might write about in an exam. So how to seamlessly integrate wider context into your writing, but also there will be some subject knowledge there as well. So a nice idea from Henry and Janet. Macbeth is quite cold and emotionless towards Lady Macbeth at the end of the play, as when he hears about Lady Macbeth's death, he said it would have happened anyway. Actually, I think we were along the same sort of lines there. So well done, Henry and Janet. I've added to this and shown unexpected tenderness that surprises an audience who have become accustomed to their distance. So that there is also talking a bit about AO3, isn't it? It's talking about how the audience would perceive what was happening on the stage. However, this tenderness does not last. When told his wife is dead, his response is stoic, very serious, uncaring, exactly what Henry and Janet say. He has reached a state where life signifies nothing, and his love for his dearest partner in greatness has been swept aside in readiness to face Macduff. You can see there chucked in lots of extra quotes as well. So that's just an example of how you might develop that idea, because it was undeveloped. It was very limited, and it's quite easy to write a very limited essay. So you really must constantly be asking yourself, how far can I stretch this idea? Is there anything else I can add? Have I been detailed enough? So what next? If you've got any questions, you can ask them in the chat box. I'll do my best to answer them. Laura says, do you have any study methods that could help me get a higher grade? Lots of different revision techniques, but the trick is to find one that really works for you, and you need to sort of work out what type of learner you are to be able to do that. So what I would like you to do after the session to make the most of what we've covered here today is to complete the post-session task, which is this question. As the Macbeths plan to murder Duncan, Macbeth worries about the consequences of killing him. Lady Macbeth is appalled by his change of mind. Describe the bottom of the question's been left off, oddly. You've all got a copy of it printed, hopefully, or on a screen somewhere anyway. The question is asking how their relationship is presented at the end of the play. And we've obviously just looked at that little bit of deeper analysis, so you could use some ideas from that in your answer. And that should take you about 60 minutes if you think about planning your time effectively. So good luck. Good luck with your post-session task if you're going to have a go at that. I'm always happy to read over the work and give you a little bit of light feedback on it. And of course, good luck in your exams. The next GCSE workshop is for Christmas Carol, and that's on Monday of next week. And then the next Macbeth workshop is on the 22nd of January. So those are coming up. You can get your adult to get in touch if you'd like to come to any of those. So that's it from me this evening. Thank you so much for coming along. It's been really, really nice to have so many of you here. What a thrilling evening for me. And I hope to see you all in one of my workshops soon. Okay, have a really nice evening, everybody.